Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well today. It's the morning here, it's 8:33. Thought I'd go live a little bit earlier today because I'm off on a little adventure today. It's 29th of July and we are knee deep in the transfer window. I hope we're all doing really well today. Let me know how you're doing in the chat. And yeah, so funny little story actually. So last couple of shows, I think last week, I was talking about how basically when I was a kid, I had a poster on my wall, right? So it was like an A3 size one, and I basically ordered the same thing, right? So when I was about, oh God, must have been about 7 or 8, put it up. This was the 91-92 season, just before the Premier League started, and I put it up, and we basically then started to win every single thing for the next season. So I'm going to do some stuff on the back wall. Now I decided that I was going to order the same thing. Now me thinking, yeah, you know, I've ordered the poster and it's going to come in A3, but actually, it's actually coming in a postage stamp of this size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow this up. I'm going to put this on the back wall there. So this is the very same poster that I had on my wall all those years ago, and I put it up and we started to win the league. So this is going to go on the back wall, bigger size obviously, but once this goes up, be warned, we are going to win the league. So just a little thing there. So honestly, here's me thinking that it's a big, massive one. I was going to stick it in a frame, put it back on the wall. It was going to be on the wall now, but I'm going to try to do that before the start of the season. So let's see what we can do now. One of the things I love about this community, and one of the things that we talk about on here, is we talk about all different things. I think we are level. I think we've got a level head, and we always talk about different things, and we spitball things. And this is the best chat. This is the best chat. You know, I've chatted on other channels, and this is definitely the best chat, the most intelligent chat, in my opinion. And to that end as well, if you do want to get into the chat, one of the things I will always say to you is just be respectful of other people's opinions. We may not always agree, but I think it's really important that you get in the chat and we talk about these different things. I'm not gonna ban you or try to be a dictator for, you know, having a different opinion. You may not always agree, but I think it's really important that you get your opinion out. Like, get it out of your head. And we need to talk about this stuff. So yesterday, let's talk about the news. So 69 million is pretty much the price that has been set for Šeško. This has been reported by Laurie Whitwell in the Athletic, and he's reported some stuff overnight. So if you might have seen that, you may be a little bit concerned, but this is written before yesterday, before the Romano updates, and before we kind of did our show. And this is kind of an update that's probably a little bit behind because he's obviously in the States. Now, United are in, so there is no... and the funny thing is as well, let's just not calling it anyone out. And this is the beauty of the chat, and we can see what happens over time. So if somebody to come into the chat and really put in a valid opinion and said that Whitwell has said that we're not in for Šeško. Now, as it transpires overnight and into today, that Whitwell has now changed his opinion and we are in for Šeško. So everybody is saying that we're in for Šeško. So this is not an if but now. If you are unsure or you haven't been around or you've been in a ditch for the last couple of days, United are in for Šeško. We have presented our project. Newcastle have done the same, and we are, what wasn't really reported yesterday as such, and I kind of alluded to that 60 million mark, but the actual price of this, and now because Newcastle are chasing the transfer as well, we are around about 69 million, which is sort of in line with the Ekatike sort of deal. I mean, that was around 74, I think. But the interesting thing is that I don't know where it's come from, but it was out there that there was a gentleman's agreement between Leipzig and Sesko that the price would be around 61 mil. So again, who you believe is up to you. Now, obviously, this is all come out. There's a bit of an update around this, and we spoke about this yesterday as a hypothetical, and it transpires that this is actually kind of coming true. So one of the things that we did say, and get in the chat as well with your striker options, if these two, what I'm going to mention as well, fall through, get in there with your striker options. So as we said yesterday, it looked like Šeško or bust, which is pretty much, I think, is the case. United, Šeško is United's number one now. But interestingly enough, what we did say yesterday is what would happen if we started to offer 69 mil, 65 million for Šeško, and Aston Villa need to sell Ollie Watkins. And when we say need to sell, Emery, he's not a big fan of him. He's surplus to requirements there, and that's well known. So Aston Villa looking for 60 million. Now at that price, again, we can get our opinions in on this one. As much as Watkins, I like him, and the choice of the two, we can go through the choice of the two and who would I pick if there was an option for Watkins or a Šeško. We can go through that, get your opinions in on that as well. I'd love to know what your opinions are on Watkins versus a Šeško deal. So what we said on here, we were talking about, was in a hypothetical where Watkins wasn't necessarily involved yesterday, was if Aston Villa reduced their price to 45 million, who then would you go for? Would you go for a Šeško or would you go for a Watkins? Now, there are plus points and minuses to both. So Šeško, 22 years old, just turned 22 May. In my opinion, the value is there with him. So 69 mil, and you can argue he's not experienced, but 69 million, even if you spread that over 5 years, it's going to be 27. You've then pretty much paid off for that player. You look at Højlund, whether you rate him or not, he's still going to be worth about 40 million purely because of his age and his wage as well. So even though technically we would lose money, or we could probably still break even on that deal. Hesty RUN super chat in here. Welcome to the show this morning. I hope we're doing really well. Now, I followed United because of David Beckham's pretty face. Fair enough. And I started to watch every United match. I was so happy. I got some pin-up posters of Man United squad on girls' magazines. I like to hear that. Now, it doesn't really matter how you get into football, right? And women who support. I mean, I'm a dad of 3 girls, right? And I try to get them into football. Now, I've managed to get one of them into football, and I think the more women and girls, it adds a different perspective, irrespective of how you got in there, because obviously you like a player or you fancy a player. If that gets you into supporting the team, and this is what I mean about this club, what the club is so good. I'm laughing because Mark Harris is in the chat. And hello to you, sir. It doesn't really matter how you get into football. Just get into football. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. And of course, you're welcome here. Mike House, Højlund should be arrested for fraud and embezzlement on payday. Good morning, Mark. Good afternoon, Mark. Good evening, Mark. I hope you're doing really well. And legend, absolute legend of the chat, keeps me entertained. Legend. So whether we think Højlund allegedly should be done for embezzlement, he's still going to be worth pretty much what we pay for him in terms of when you take off the value on the book. So and that's the beauty and the allure of pretty much buying these young players. So Šeško, you could argue, is he the same? Unproven in the Premier League. 69 million, is that a lot? But when you spread that out, he's 22 years old. He's the best of the rest. He's the best of the rest. Young players, you take a gamble on him. He could be like an Isak. You just don't know. I personally like his feet work. I like how he plays. I like how he can play. Good evening, Mark Harris, legend. And if you sort of looking at that at the next striker. Now, I've said this as well. It depends on what your aspirations are. If your aspirations are not necessarily to win the league, and you are looking to take a punt on Šeško, and you can argue this, that when you're looking at percentages wise, is that if you've got a young player that can possibly come into this team young and next big thing, and you would hope that he sort of hits the ground, you're not going to really lose money on him as such, unless if Højlund can still be worth 40 million and still be awful, then Šeško I think is better. So you're going to really lose money over 5 years? Probably not. 27, if he does hit the ground, then he's going to be worth more than what you paid for him in 5 years, and then we can sell him. So but there is also obviously the possibility that he could absolutely flop or get injured. So I think as a percentage wise, I think there's probably out of 3 or 4 points, there's probably 3 of the 4 points that are positive. So you're talking 75, 60%, 66% that the transfer will work out well in some way. So as a business, if you're looking for a positives and wherever else into why you should sign him from an Ineos business perspective, it totally makes sense. If Højlund is the best, I don't want to see the rest. Højlund is definitely not the best of the rest. Højlund is the I want to be kind to him because he is young, but he's just not the guy. Now, I have seen some things on Højlund on the basis that things like the unseen thing about Højlund, what he's doing well, and insinuating that he's a beast and whatever else, and I really don't see it. Hesty says, I'm not really sold on Šeško, but if he goes to Newcastle, I'm afraid United can be panicked by another player. I can't lie. I've said this. Šeško, I can see him in a Newcastle shirt. I've always thought this. He looks like that sort of player. Now, to go back to that, Fireboy says, hi Mark, Šeško, Arsenal used him to get Gyökeres, so if he comes to Man United, he will prove Arsenal wrong, and coming to us with no Champions League, we should grab him with both hands. Fireboy, again, as an opinion, I can't argue with that opinion. He was Arsenal's first choice. Arsenal are going to kid you, or their fans are, and say that he wasn't first choice. So Berta lined them both up, Gyökeres and Šeško. He actually used Gyökeres to try to get Šeško and get that deal down, but it didn't work, so they pivoted. So Šeško, in terms of that, if Arsenal were looking to win the league and were happy to bring Šeško in, then then he's good enough for me. Hesty says, do you think we will give Šeško a salary under 200, 150 per week? Good question. It depends on the Newcastle salary. Now, Newcastle are not great payers. Isak, I think, was on 130, 150k, and one of the reasons why he wanted to leave is he wanted 300k, and they said, no, we don't want to pay that. So when you look at it from that perspective, if Newcastle offer him 200k, which they might, then we'd need to match that. So I think you're right. I'd like to get Šeško for 150,000 a week because that makes more sense. He's a youth player. I mean, I'd like to give him less than that and make him earn it, but we might do 150 and incentivize that to get us into the Champions League. And then if we did, then maybe he goes up to 200k. So I think depends on what Newcastle offer. If Newcastle offer in 200k, then we're going to be forced into offering that. But I'd like to think we're around about the 150 to 180 mark. I think that's where we go. Anything less than that, then we've done well. Mark Harris, warning signs not task of keeper, midfielder, baller, or strikers. Do we United want relegation? Obviously, we don't want that, but I think Mbeumo and Cunha, I think, sort of prevents that. But we need, as you say, we need a midfielder. Like I've said, I demand a striker. I demand a midfielder. I demand a keeper. If we do this Šeško deal, we will rely on a Garnacho and Anthony So, and we can go back to those as well and talk about those. If we don't get a goalkeeper in, then it's mid-table for me. Even when you get a Šeško, and when you're spending north of 200 million potentially on 3 players, most clubs, including myself, would be expecting a push top 4. But with the business of other clubs, not even that now will guarantee you a top 4 push. So we definitely need a keeper. Lemens, obviously, I think is the number one. I think we are trying to push to get a loan for Martinez, but let's see how that does. So Šeško deal. There are pluses, a lot of pluses for the 69 mil deal. Now, conversely for that, you can argue, and this is where I'm at on this as well, is if Watkins is available for 40 to 45 mil, then do you pivot there? So Aston Villa wanted 60, and this is now almost the beauty of this. And to be clear, that we now have 2 targets. It's Šeško, Watkins, or bust, or panic buy. So there are rumblings now coming out, as we spoke about as a hypothetical yesterday, because it's a logical thing to think about, is that we go to Leipzig and Aston Villa then come back and go, well, actually, we need the money, really. So actually, we'll give you Watkins for 45 million. Now, one of the beneficial things to me for that is Ollie Watkins' record, injury-wise, is pretty good. In the last 2 seasons, I don't think he's probably top 3 at least of goals and assists. He brings you that Premier League experience. He will get you those goals, and he's the type of player that you buy if you want a top 4, top 5 push. Šeško is as well, but with Ollie Watkins, you're basically saying he's like a Van Persie signing, and you basically go, we want Prem proven, and we are going to go for a top push. Now, the reason why you do that is because you basically want to get into the Champions League, and as we all know, Champions League money it will push us on, and we need that money, and we need to get in there, and we need to get in that battle. We need to get into that fight. So Watkins, what you're saying there is, I want that. Now the downside to Watkins, wages wise, he's expensive. Is he going to want 250,000? Is he going to want 300k at that price? For me, it's a no, even at 45 mil. If you're asking me, 45 for Watkins at a reasonable wage on a decent deal. I don't want a 5-year deal for Watkins. It needs to be a 3 plus 1, 4 at the max. He's 29 years old. You're basically outlaying 45 million and saying, look, we're not going to get this back. Šeško is a different story. You outlay that money. It's a financial risk, of course it is, but it's still almost a futures financial investment. Ollie Watkins is not an investment. We need to get... Watkins represents to me you get him and you go, it's Champions League or bust. And if we don't, then we've basically wasted 45 million, no resell. He's 29 years old, 30 in December. Now, 29, 30, you're still in your peak as a striker. You're still, you still potentially got another 3 to 4 years left in you. Watkins brings experience. If we're keeping Højlund, which I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. OB, he brings that experience. He brings that, he can train those strikers. Like OB, learning off of him would be fantastic. So he brings like the benefits of that experience. You know he's prem proven. You don't really need to do much with him. He comes in and fits in that team. He makes intelligent runs. He runs down the wings, down the flanks, plays on the last man, spins inside. So you basically know what you're going to get, and if he gets those numbers. Now, the problem with that is would there be a decline maybe in the next 2 years? But if you're in the Champions League and you get the money, then you can go and get a Sesko if he's still there, and you can go and get these other players. But both come with risks. Now, for me, if you get an opportunity for Watkins at 40, 45 million, 150 to 200k a week, for me, I think I personally would rather do that. I think we should do both. I think we should get Sesko and Watkins. Or if we get a Watkins, I think we need to go and get another striker in the free market, not Lewin. I don't want that. But Sesko is United's number one target. I wonder if they would pivot if Aston Villa come out and say, look, we really need the money now. We tried to bluff you, but we really want the money. Do you want to do a deal? I can see that. But United, this has Ineos all over it in some respects. Those of you who want Sesko, I want Sesko. I'd be happy with him. Afreen says United is too slow in the transfer market. Jim and the Glazers out big flop. I need Qatar in the only way Man United come back. I agree with you on that one. We can pivot to that one. Get me on my soapbox on that one. We are too slow in the market. It was put out a week and a bit ago with Ornstein how basically United are basically happy with their business. They think they've done some good business. They think that they may not get all their targets. They're going to push it to the January window, and I'll keep I'll keep beating on this drum that they're going to do business in the January market, which they never do. They're very, very slow. Just admit Højlund is a bum. Sell him for a packet of Rolos. Move on. Football moving consistently. I agree with that, and I think I said that yesterday. So I will come back to that comment about Sir Jim and the Glazers. And I said yesterday that I've got a heart and a head for the Rasmus deal. I think he got a raw deal. 20 years old, being asked to lead the line. There's not many 20 years old who can do that. And asking him to do that, I think, has burnt him completely. Now, my heart says he's a kid. Well, he's a young man. I would love him to do well, but my head is a logical and says, look, if we're going to be that club who want to move on and we want to win things again and we want to win the league, Rasmus has to go. We 2 years at the club, he's not it. Big clubs go, the amount of time he's been here, he's shown what he is. Maybe he can, Gyökeres as an example, wasn't pulling trees up when he was 22 years old. But big clubs move on, admit, and say, look, it hasn't happened. Go and ply your trade elsewhere, get some money in, and he needs to go. And if as Mark says, we want to be a big club, and football constantly moves, we can't keep trying with these same players who are not performing. They need to go. I like him. I think he's a good kid. But if we want to progress and we need to move on, we need to move on with the next thing. And I agree with Mark on this. I think he needs to move on. If we can get some money for him on loan with an option to buy, I think he needs to go. We say, thank you very much. You tried. You played for one of the biggest clubs in the world. Bigger and better people than you have failed. And they've moved on and done different and better things. So Rasmus, for me, definitely needs to go. But if he goes, Šeško can't be the only striker that we bring in. We can't just have OB and Šeško. I think we need to bring in like a number 2 striker. So I agree with Mark on that. Bruno in the midfield is not a new dawn. I'm going to park him. I think I've made my feelings clear in that. I think we should have sold him. I think he's ill-disciplined, but he does bring goals and assists. Bruno for me is a stat padder. His stats actually mask and hide what he actually does. He does bring things into the pitch, but if the first 3-4 months of the season he's still doing the same thing, I hope Saudi come back in and take him off us. So let's see. Amarin said that he doesn't want him to go, so Amarin's going to live and die on that. So I think we'll be abundantly clear very quickly about Fernandez and whether or not he's made the right choice. So Ifarine, I apologise if that's not how you pronounce your name. I agree with you. And the epitome of your comment, and I agree with you for a number of reasons. When you've got Ornstein coming out, and I will say this, and we've said this, and it's been, people missed this at the time. United think they've done good business, and that's what we're dealing with here. Is that the hierarchy do truly believe that they've done business extremely well. The epitome for me, and I agree with your comment completely. If you watch some of the things I've done, I've slated the Glazers, and I'll tell you where I stand on that as well. Is that they spend 7 weeks doing a deal, and Mbeumo couldn't play against West Ham because he's not fit enough. If that's not slow, Sir Jim come out and he was saying, we want to walk to the right deal, not run to a bad deal. They walked to a deal, and I've said this time and time again, where so Brentford, no disrespect to them, people want their players. You have to walk into their ground through somebody's house, and they spent many time in the Championship League One, and they schooled United. They schooled this apparently machine, this best-in-class machine, striving for best-in-class, who's trying to win the league in 2028, and they absolutely schooled them. So we walked to a decision, yes, but we walked to a decision that the selling club wanted. They wanted 65 and then changed the rules of the game, and we walked to that. We spent so long that Mbeumo is not fit enough just yet for the tour. So if that's not the epitome of slow and the epitome of incompetence, I don't know what is. We've signed 2 players. We know we need a striker. We know we needed that for 2 years. We know we needed a midfielder. We also know that we need a keeper. And yet other clubs are signing 4 or 5 players because they want to push to win the league. So I'm in agreement with you absolutely, completely. Now my opinion on the Glazers in terms of overall and the things that we don't do are, I wanted Qatar. The only way out of our mess is to buy out of our mess. Even if Qatar came in, bought it up, cleared the debt, and then had to sell, at least the debt has gone. Ineos are facilitators. Sir Jim is a charlatan. He's come into this club to be a front because the regeneration, that's all this is about. He's come in as a figurehead because of his influence and power that he's got, and he wants to make some money. The Glazers still own and run this club, which is abundantly clear. But Sir Jim facilitates the decisions that they could never do. They've come in, they've got rid of half the staff. They're penny pinching. I do know some people that do work there, that have worked there, and they hate working there. The club's soul is being destroyed. They now want to charge £4,000 license to come to the club and watch this club. They're talking raising hundreds of millions of pounds just to basically go and watch the club before your ticket price. And I want them out. If there's an opportunity to get these leeches out of the club, if the regeneration happens, then they're going to be here for the next 20, 30 years. Camera 24. Hello, my friend. Now we got Mbeumo Cunha. Would you sell Bruno? Yes, I would. I wanted to sell him at the time, but he's not going to be sold, is he? and that's the frustrating thing. But he's here, and I will support him and hope that he does change. Mark Harris, yeah, our friend. Man United is a crap club. Jim Glazers have to go. Player like Luke Shaw, Anana, Harry, big flop. Glazers and Jim, I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. The fact that Luke Shaw is still here, world class Luke Shaw. Do not forget, Amarin has said that, and I can't believe that he said this. Whether or not he's trying to sell him or not, that Luke Shaw is world class. You can make your mind up on that. Whereas Lemen's deal, Onana will cost 20 points plus, so slow. Obviously, he loved this guy. By all accounts, Amarin obviously doesn't want him, but United, it's a business choice. If they keep him, it's a business choice. The men's, for me, they need to go get that deal done. They need to quell this fan base. A striker will partly do that, but what they don't get is that we know we can no longer be fooled. Some people can. You know, if your opinion of the Glazers is great, but they think if they go and get Sesko, it's a big outlay. If they go and get Sesko, then that's it. They can relax and chill. But we need to move. We need to consistently move, and we need a Nana gone as well. Mason Mount, Luke Shaw, two more bums holding their hands up for cash. Sack them as we especially. Shaw gets fit for England. Yeah. I think, Mark, you've alluded to this before, is that managers get sacked, but players don't get sacked. So Luke Shaw, for me, any big club would basically say goodbye, Luke Shaw, get rid of that player. You know, he has been stealing a wage for the best part of 2 years, but he manages to get fit for England. And there you go. Mason Mount, that number 7 shirt, for me, every time I see that, my heart drops. You know, our number 7s that we've had, and Mason Mount for me is not that guy. Again, he seems like a good guy. You know, these players seem like the good guys and the nice guys, but we don't need that. We need proper players to move on and move this club to the next stage. So, if you have just joined, sum up basically. Whitwell now from the Athletic to go with Romano, Florian Plettenberg. United are all in for Sesko right now. 69 million is the price. This is going to develop. So those of you who wanted Sesko, the reason why this is now being forced, and will be forced into doing this into a quick deal, is because Newcastle or thereabouts. Exactly, Luke Shaw is an issue, and he never plays. He started the game against Leeds. I thought he looked awful. You know, he's still good with the ball at his feet, but he's got no pace, and he's going to be injured at some point again. So the sooner he gets that out the way, we can move on and put that to bed and know he's going to be out for the season, so we don't have to have this conversation. Even though I think it's really important that we do, and we keep these players in this club accountable for the mistakes that they make. So we're all in for Sesko, 69 million. Now, I want to know what you think about that. 69 million for Sesko. Do you think it's value for money? Would you rather go for Sesko? And this is assuming that Watkins is now available for 45 million. Who would you rather go? Who would you rather go for? And I've made my feelings clear. I just wonder in the chat what you'd go for. Would you rather a Watkins? Now, Muani's been mentioned as well. Moises Keane was mentioned. I'm just checking to see if there's anything out there. No. Just have a little check. Let's do another hypothetical, because we seem to be doing quite well on these. Is that, let's just say now we obviously, and there's a possibility that we balls up this Sesko deal. Then Aston Villa go, no, the price is still 60 million. Where do you then go? Now, so Jackson from Chelsea, I think that's been ruled out. I mean, Garnacho, we can pivot to him for a second. So he is, and he's on the thumbnail as well. So I think it's pretty much Chelsea or bust for him. So Garnacho is waiting for Chelsea. He wants a move to them because obviously Champions League and whatever else. And I think Sesko, Watkins play Kone in the midfield, Amarin no balls. I'm surprised Kone hasn't got any game time yet. Vardy and a slab of beer. Vardy will be too busy on the Red Bulls and the old snuff box, won't he? But Vardy, I wouldn't rule out. I genuinely wouldn't rule out another like a free striker, and I'm surprised Vardy hasn't gone yet. So we've been saying on here for a little while. I still think that Vardy is a potential. Afreen says breaking. I just saw that as well. PSG closing in on Lucas Chevalier deal. Final stages official submit for 40 million. Lil one add-ons, but it is now all being sealed, and that's potentially another goalkeeper. Now the interesting thing, as you said there, it I wonder what that means for Donnarumma. Couldn't think of his name then. If he's available, I'd go for that deal. I'd be all over that. There's not many keepers like that who are available, and that's who I would go for next. Lemenzi is a good option, but when you got, as he's proven, an Italian world-class keeper, then that's the deal that you do as well. I mean, he'd be expensive though. He'd be 1 in 250 in goal. Can you shift a niner out? Do you loan a niner out? That's the goalkeeper that I would go for if he's available. The fact that PSG are signing Chevalier for that sort of money, he's going to be their number one. So, there are deals to do, and any good club now would go after that deal. So that's where we are really. So Garnacho, he's waiting for a Chelsea deal. So that's my only fear with that Chelsea deal is that if we miss out on Watkins and Šeško, we do the unthinkable, and Jackson then becomes the number one. I don't think that is the case. I don't think that we would go there. I think that's been ruled out. I think he's expensive, and I think even United hierarchy know that that's an interesting one. I mean, I always thought he was a good keeper, but you do make a good point why they would get rid of him, because he's touted as a world-class keeper. So maybe we don't go. I mean, I don't know enough about. I've seen him play, and the instances I've seen him play for Italy and whatever else in goal, I've also thought he looked like a decent keeper, but I don't know the politics behind it, and I don't see him play every game. So you make a good point. Maybe we do stay away from an expensive mistake. Eric Maustra, welcome, and I think we need to go for all out Šeško. Final week of the window, we get a goalkeeper. I think that's what we're going to do. I want to see a midfielder in now. I think we do a loan for Luis from Juventus. I think that we do that as well. Okay. That's an interesting one. Fans say he's a flop. An expensive flop of that, I guess. I mean, that's a really interesting point. So me, I would have gone for him, but you should listen to fans, right? I wish that United would come and listen to us and the fans on here. And it's really interesting that if you talk to their fans on that, and that's, I think, where you get the real insight on these players is when you talk to fans. So Eric, I think that we should go for Sesko. If he's the best of the rest and Ollie Watkins is still 60 million, you spend that outlay on a 22-year-old. It's a gamble, but you probably are going to get that money back. And even if you spent that money, then anything else you get, then Onana wasn't even a good keeper in the Champions League for us, was he? Shocking play. So that's really interesting, and it is funny how no one else has come in for him as well. So I think you make a great point. You make a really, really good point, actually. But that, as I say, I'm open to opinions, especially on players that I don't watch every single week, and that's a really good opinion. So that's probably shifted my opinion on the goalkeeper. So to go back to Eric now, I think that's what we'll do, but I don't think that's what we should do. So I don't think we should wait till the final week of the window to get a keeper. And I should tell you for why. Is if you wait to the final week, that means Onana's in goal. And that's my biggest problem with that. Not because I don't think you're right, not because I don't think you're correct. I think you probably are right. But we need a goalkeeper in. And if we don't get a goalkeeper in, then Onana's in for I'm already resigned to the fact that Onana's in for the first game of the season. But the problem is, if we wait longer for these players, they're not going to, even if you get Sesko in now, is he going to be ready for the Arsenal game? I don't know. And if you wait till the last knock-ins of the window for a keeper, and guess what? Onana's in goal for conceivably the first half of the season. Because if we go for Lemens, he's going to need to come in, show what he can do. We're going to have one game a week. And is he going to have enough time to show what he can do and oust Onana? And basically, also what that means as well is if Onana's in goal and he's having terrible games, he gets ousted because he's having an awful game and costing us points. So this is why I think we need to get a keeper in now. Lemens is such an easy deal to do. It's such an easy deal to do, especially with Anthony, and it still looks like he's off to Saudi. You go and get that deal done. The problem is that they're going to want cash. So do we have that money to get that deal done? So I want to see that. I want to see that being done. So Garnacho, back to that deal. Just pivot slightly there. Just we can finish off that news bit on him. So Garnacho wants his move to Chelsea. I think that he needs to be careful what he wishes for. I don't see how he gets and where he gets into that team. They signed a load of players, and Garnacho wants to go to the World Cup with. But Argentina, he needs to be playing. I know they're in the Champions League, but is he going to get into that squad? They've got so many good players, and he's quite petulant. And I don't know if he'll be like a Sancho, and he'll go there, and I don't think he'll be consistently playing. I think they've got too many players in front of him. Now, also the problem for him, and he needs to think about this: if we sell him to Chelsea, Chelsea always ask for big cash. I want 55 out of him. They sold us Mason Mount for 55, right? I genuinely would charge him 55. Now, whether or not we can get that deal done, I don't know. But if we are selling a product like that at his age, with his experience, and he scores goals, whatever you think about him, he consistently plays, got that Premier League experience. Alanga's gone for 55 mil, and you can argue that he's probably not worth that. We've devalued him slightly. But Chelsea, if they want him, it's 55 million. If not, because he's clearly holding out to the end of the window, he wants a final slap in our faces to be like, I know I'm worth 55 million, but I'm going to get my move. I don't care if you devalue me. I don't care if I do that. He's tried his hardest. Then I think we call his bluff and he stays. if somebody wants to pay 35 or 30 mil for him, that is too cheap. That is too cheap. And I'd let him rot for a year. He's still going to be worth the same. Now, even if he goes down to 30 million, 25 million, he's going to devalue himself, and that's fine. We still get 35 million for him next year. Let him rot. Let's call his bluff. And then the beauty behind that is that then we send a message to these players and says, look, you can try to force a move, but you move under our conditions, not under yours. Obviously, the difference becomes is if we have to sell him to get players, then we're gonna have to suck it up and sell him. But my preference right now is if he wants that Premier League move, we need Premier League money. Why should we take any less because you go into a Premier League club? And Chelsea need to cough up. We know they got money. Any other team, maybe in Aston Villa, maybe you do a deal for like 40 million plus 5 or 10. But for Chelsea, 55 million, or he stays and rots for a year. So, and that's the problem. He's still young. He's petulant. He's not thinking this through. You know, he's going to hurt his own career. And if that's what he wants to do, then that's up to him. Ifarine United, they are eyeing him. Everton want Grealish on loan. George Russell needs 30. Ifarine, as much as I like the comments and I respect the comments, mate. I'm not overly bothered about other clubs. I don't mind reading out the transfer stuff for our club and things like the Mercedes deal. I mean, I'm not bothered about that. That's not really the place for that. I appreciate you being here, but I'm not going to read deals about other clubs and other sports. There are places for that. So respectfully, respect your opinions. I think you've put some amazing things in here, but I'm not going to read out that kind of stuff. Hesty 13, welcome. Letting Ghana rot is exactly that. I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite, and I don't like doing it, especially to young players. If Garnacho hadn't done what he did if he hadn't done what he did in the Villa shirt, if he wasn't so petulant, if he's trying to damage him, he's trying to damage his value. So, Farine, I'm going to give you another chance. But as I said, I respect your comments and being in the chat. But I'm just going to say this now. Like, I don't mind talking about this club, and I don't mind going off on a tangent for this club. But other clubs, I'm just going to say this now. I'm not interested in that. Continue, and I'm going to have to I don't like to do it, but this is not a transfer for all. This is this is about our club. So anymore, and I am going to have to ban you. So please don't, because I appreciate you being in the chat, and it's definitely not something that I like to do and I want to do. I would let him rot. I don't like to. It's not something I particularly want to do. He's a youth player, but it's almost like when you warn a child. I see him as a child, and when you keep warning a child not to do something and they do it anyway, or the choices that they make, I'm very much of the opinion that that you, sorry, I'm just sorting something out for a sec. That you eventually he's going to have to be punished, right? And if we United may be forced into a sale, right? Because of how badly run we've been, we may have forced ourselves into taking and that's down to us as well, into a lesser sum for a player who should be worth 55 million. If Alanga is worth 55 mil, and it's okay for everybody else in the market to demand money for plays based on a price. Chelsea are trying to do it for Jackson. So if they're touting him as like £100 million player, we need to be firm and be strong and say, look, we want 55 million. If we need to sell, then obviously that's a different story. But what I'm hoping and what could be the nail in the coffin for him is that Sancho is going to go. We'll save a load of wages there. Anthony could be the one. In an ironic world, we were all worried about him at the start of last season. He sort of played himself into contention back into the Brazil squad. He played extremely well. He put his value back up, so we don't have to take a book loss. We potentially, with this Saudi rumoured deal, that we could be making some more money. We don't need that money to go and get a Šeško. So he does need to be very, very, very careful now. And I do hope that we don't need the money to go and get the remaining deals done. So if that is the case, then he's playing a really dangerous deal. And if Chelsea want him 55 million, and if that is a case, then we've got another 55 million to play with. And who's to say that we can't go and get that midfield player that we need? Mark says that Garnacho, give him 15 minutes and talk, and Garnacho will give 100%. I don't disagree with that. Adeyemi, hello mate, good morning. How you doing? I am doing extremely well. I hope you're doing the same. Another legend of the chat there. Hope you're doing really, really well today. Let me know how you are. And that, Mark Harris, is a very good and astute point. Now, I have to be balanced and fair. Amorim is still young himself, right? He's 40 years old. He's younger than me, which is ridiculous, which makes me feel bad for my life and my life choices. No, I kid. He's still very young himself. He's coming from a Portuguese league. And, Fergie, when he took over this club, I think was slightly older. He'd come from Aberdeen. He'd learnt the hard way, the old school way. So he was entrenched in respect and whatever else, right? I'm not saying that Amorim isn't that type, but he's still very young and he still makes decisions on players that I think are suspect. There are a couple of red flags, like, when you devalue some of your players, whether he's been given that mandate to do that is very naive of the club and very naive of him if he's gone off on a tangent to do that. And that for me shows lack of experience, right? And Mark, again, you've made a good point. This is why Amorim is not world class yet. You can mention Klopp because that's pertinent to what we're saying, right? And that's exactly it. This is why Amorim is a developmental manager. He's 40 years old. Some of the players are not far off his age. He can't be a father to them. And this is why you only become, in my opinion, world class when you get slightly older. You need to be at a club for a long time as well. This is where other managers struggled. Jose was a bit of a weird one for me. Van Gaal, the players liked him and respected him and knew what they were trying to do, but the club didn't. So Jose, again, I think he was as much as he should be a father figure, he was very selective, and I think he was very spiky with players that he didn't like. So Amorim is that he can't be a father figure yet because he's too young. And I think you're right. If we my choice would have been an Ancelotti. I think he would have been perfect. A couple of years ago, would I have taken him now? Maybe, but he would have been perfect. Klopp as well. Klopp, youngish manager, but still of an age, still had that demeanour that players would run through brick walls. And Amorim right now, players are not prepared to do that. He's a younger manager, younger ideas, and you can only get that with experience. So maybe if he stays for 4 or 5 years, then maybe the younger players will start to run through walls for him. But this current crop of players, what's Amorim? I think he's about 40, isn't he? 41. Let's have a little look. Let's see how old Amorim is. And I've never really thought about that, Mark, to be honest with you. So I think you make an excellent point there. So he's 41. In fact, he's 40. So he's not going to be 41 until December. Yeah. No, he's going to be 41 in January. So he's still only 40. So you look at, other than Pep, but I think Pep's pushing 50 now, isn't he? So you make a really good point there. And that's something I never really thought about before. So we wonder why maybe these players are not responding to him. Is it because he's too young? Is it because actually that plays against him, even though he's a youngish coach? But then I guess you can sort of maybe argue that about other managers. So like a Ten Hag, was it just the players? The players just don't respect anybody else. And this is and these are all the problems that are starting to come home to roost. Adeyemi says, "I'm doing great, thank you. Really, I'm glad to hear that. I hope we get Sesko. Newcastle going to offer him Champions League, which we can't. Load in a midfielder, get Carlos B, deal done next season." Well, if Anthony, and again we can sort of spitball and hypothetical this, is that if Anthony goes for a profit to Saudi and we get that deal done and we get money in and we get the wages off the books, Sancho goes, that's a load of money there, and then Garnacho does go for 55 to Chelsea, 45 to 55. Who's to say we can't do that deal? Who's to say we can't do that deal? So our friends back in the chat. Perfect. Thank you, sir. So Benjamin Šeško's chancing of joining Man United are 50%, while Emi Martinez are 35%. I'd love to know where you get those percentages from. You got a Fabrizio there. Do you know when that was said? I'll happily have a little look on that. Thank you for the information. Let's have a little look. I mean, I've not seen percentages from Fabrizio. Maybe it's on his podcast or something. So Dezen Football. I wouldn't trust the paper that's on. To be honest with you, but let's see. I'd be interested to know. I mean, I'm going to say this now. If Fabrizio's come out and given those percentages, obviously I'd love to know where he's got those percentages from. But he's the only one that gets. Okay, so there. I see. So they basically now are They have. Okay. So that's an interesting one. So Fabrizio on. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, so according to Fabrizio on Dezen, but Dezen are trying to drive this, right? So they're trying to be different and they're trying to drive a percentage based thing on there, which I think's wrong anyway. So Romano can only pretty much sort of go by, what he knows. Šeško's 50-50 right now. Well, I think that's an obvious one on the basis that, well, he hasn't made his mind up yet. I do think it. Is it fake? It's them trying to drive Fabrizio into giving the percentages so they can be different to everyone else. If you read more credible, and I'm not talking about Fabrizio because he doesn't come out and really say percentage wise, but if you're looking at anyone else and you're looking and you can find it out there, Sesko wants to come to us. So that immediately puts us in the ballpark. If I was going to put a percentage on it, I'd go 70-30 on the basis that Sesko wants to come to us. Newcastle have Champions League football, and no disrespect to the Toon, but at the end of the day, they're not as big as us. I think our club, our history, how big we are, fan base, for him publicly as well, for him, you instantaneously join this club and your X, your Twitter, your YouTube instantaneously increases extremely high. So even from a personal brand perspective, much bigger than Newcastle. So, and there's no disrespect to them. They're an ambitious club. They're a good club. Their fans are great. But if you're looking at why Sesko would come to us, then that's the reason why. Ocom says negative. I think Amorim will be a successful manager. Just give him time. He's been proven himself. Bigger teams, and imagine beating Arsenal with a red card. Negativity was, I'm trying not to be, and I'm an Amorim in, right? Right now, there are people in the chat who are not. I've always said this. This is my opinion on him. I still have to be pragmatic. I still have to be balanced in my opinions and say that I want him to succeed. I think he's a good coach. City wanted him, and there is a reason why they do. I think he's a good coach. Okay. Such a big club. Bournemouth and Brighton did the double last season. Mark, just because people beat us doesn't mean we're not a big club, right? I mean, doesn't mean we're currently not a rubbish club, but we're still a big club. I'd argue that over the Mbemo deal, right? We're such a big club, right, that we can't even get a price that we want. It still doesn't mean we're not a big club. It just means that we're not a very good one. And, we are, whether we like it or not, whether we still can't believe it, because I can't believe it at times, we are still a massive, massive club. We're one of the biggest clubs in the world, whether that's fluke or luck, how long that lasts. So Bobby, legend, absolute legend, is in the chat. I hope you're doing really well today, sir. We're still a big club. It just means that we're not a very good club. So Amorim, my stance on him is not a negative one necessarily, but if that's what you get from that, then that's fine. I'll give you my opinion on it. I have to be balanced on it, right? I consider, and the reason why I'm Amorim in and not out, I am a little bit on the fence. There's a couple of red flags for me last season. Devaluing some players not running for him. That final against Spurs, we cannot deny playing Mason Mount in that final is a red flag to me. I think it is a red flag to me, right? But we asked the coach to come in to work wonders with these players that weren't his in a system we've never played, and asked him to work wonders with this team, which is not fair. But he did decide to come. I think he's a great coach. I'm not going to say that he's not a great coach, and I'm happy that he's here and happy that we signed him. But this pre-season, has he been given the players that he needs? Probably not. Okay, so again, Is that fair? Probably not. But if he's coming out and saying that he's happy with his players that he's got, if we still don't have a great season, say we finished 9th and we still got these players because we've only signed 2 players, then yeah, of course, I think he's done something there. But if we still finish 15th, 16th, then sometimes as a fan base we have to admit and go, look, maybe he's not the guy. Maybe he is the guy, but at the wrong club. He may be the manager that we needed in 3-4 years when we are better and got better players, if that's possible. But right now, if I'm comfortable with sacking him, which I don't want to, I still think he needs the season, is I want to be comfortable in sacking a manager. I want to know, look, he's been given his players. He's got all of his players, which he hasn't got. We've let him down. Quenda was one that he wanted. We didn't get him that. Gyökeres, he didn't want that. So he didn't get that player. So if we give him the tools, so if we give him the tools, so if we give him Šeško, he's got 2 of the best players in the league. If he gets a goalkeeper and a centre midfielder, then I think that's enough. Maybe not in the first couple of games. If they don't get a pre-season, then we give him a couple of games. But once he's got those players embedded in the team, then he's got to manage that. And I think any coach with two of the best players in the league, a Šeško or a Watkins, a goalkeeper and a midfielder, then he's got to show what he's worth. So I don't want him to go, but I still have to be pragmatic, still have to be honest. And it's not negativity against him, but it's realism. We've got to be real. You know, we can't. If he's not right for us, sometimes managers are not right, and we have to be prepared for that. But I want to be prepared to support him, and I want to be prepared to give him a chance. I'd give him till the end of the season, but again, that's not at the cost of us finishing 17th. If he loses the first 5 games, which I've predicted, if he gets 8 points from 8, whether I support him, whether you support him, then he's going to be gone. Because it's a results-based game, and Ineos as a business, irrespective of as fans, I think he should be given time. I think he needs time. If he doesn't get given time, then he's gone. And I don't agree with that, but we have to be logical and look at what we've done over the past. For instance, Sidney Lamins said that United are one of the best clubs yet. You never know. It could be also a different club. Who knows? I might stay here. In any case, I try. Exactly that. I want us to get something done. True, but relying on name isn't agreed totally. And Mark, that's a good point, because how long do we rely on our name? Eventually, that name's not going to be worth as much. You're looking at. So there's a value. There's a value to your name. Right, if you was to sell a business, your value, your name, your brand is worth something just on the name. So you could, if your business was well known, and even if your business wasn't doing particularly well, if your brand is a strong brand, you can demand money based on your brand name. But how long do we have a brand name? If we are finishing 15th all the time, equally as big clubs like Leeds, so Forest won European Cups. It can happen. So you're right. How long? We can't rely on our name. We have to rely on what we do on the pitch, and that is fact. Ollie Watkins' top striker target. We hope for a deal can be agreed for Aston Villa for 40 million. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that right now. I think that's opinion. We are going for Šeško right now. Šeško is our number 1. That's obviously been confirmed by Fabrizio. If we can't get a deal done and we are relying on Villa coming down on the price, which right now they are not doing, And if Šeško move doesn't work out, then they're not going to bring that price down. They're going to keep that up there. So Watkins' price needs to come down now. But I think you're no disrespects, but I think in regards to that, I think you're just putting it out there, spitballing on it. I'm happy to discuss that. I think we've discussed that already about Watkins. I think if that was true, 40 to 45 million, I'd pivot. But I think United now are too advanced in with Šeško to pivot right now, even if that comes down. Manchester Evening News. Yeah, I mean, say what you like, they do get stuff in, but I'd take that with a pinch of salt. I think they're just trying to be different. I think it's obvious Watkins, for me, wants to join, but Aston Villa, I think they've made their bed. If they would need to come down and they would need to approach us, and in a hope that we would pivot from Šeško. But right now, according to Bundesliga, everybody, Šeško is our number one, and I'm going to sort of maintain that right now. But that's an interesting one. Adeyemi, Chelsea could bid for Garnacho in addition to Simmons at TalkSport last week. Yeah, agreed. I think that's right. I don't disagree with that. I think Chelsea are going to bid, but it's going to be 55 million. It has to be. It has to be with the amount of crap that we've taken from then. Mason Mount for 55 million was a steal. So if they want him, then it's got to be 50 million north. So I'm happy for them to bid, but it has to be, for me, 50 million north. Bobby says, would you prefer Adeyemi, Šeško or Watkins? Bobby, as Ifarin has basically alluded to and said that if Ollie Watkins is 40 million, but for me, there's a set of conditions where Watkins, I would prefer that. Watkins has to be 40, 45 million, maybe 40 plus 5. The contract has to be 3 plus 1, maximum 4 years. And the wage can't be 250. It has to be 150 to 200k. If those conditions are met, then I would pivot to Watkins. But the danger with Watkins is he is older. Is he going to start to drop off now? I don't think he will, but who's to say that he won't? And you're saying that we are basically giving that money. We're putting the money, not putting the money in the bin, but we're not going to get that money back. And he needs to fire us into the Champions League spaces. And I think that's a massive gamble. And if we are going to go for Champions League spots, then you'd go for him because you want almost those goals and assists. So I would pivot on those conditions, but I think it's an equal risk for Šeško as well. But I want both. Adeyemi, for me, again, I've seen him a load of times. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think he's a youngish. I don't know how old he is now. Pacey, quick, a shot on him, and I would consider him as well. But I think, depending on what it is we're trying to do, I think Watkins, if we're trying to get Champions League straight away, or if we're trying to build something for the future, then Šeško or an Adeyemi type. Šeško, Bobby, both I go for Grealish. I think we've said this before. Mark Harris, and Bobby, I'd take Grealish. I would. I'd take him. I like the Maverick style. I like that sort of style. If he was reasonably priced, if he could bring his wages down, I'd happily take him. I like him a lot. I think he adds something, even for a depth player. Maybe he wouldn't start, but I would bring him in. Compared, rather him or like a Mason Mount. So every day of the week, I would definitely take him. Šeško, too young for the EPL. I need Ollie. Offering, yeah. Again, I think that I think it really depends on what it is that we're trying to do basically. Um, Adeyemi, I just hope we get the deal done. Šeško is another version of Victor Osimhen. Power, strong. He can disturb defenders and press. Again, and I like this chat because everyone's got their own opinions and their own thought. I've got mine. You've got yours. I would take either. As long as we get a striker in, I would definitely go for Šeško. And I do think we are all in for Šeško. I think Villa might have bluffed this wrongly. I think they might have played their hand badly. Because if we're all in for Šeško, well, we've gone to his camp now. I just don't see us backing down from this. We'll find out soon. If Newcastle enter talks with Leipzig, then we either back down because potentially we're going to pivot to Watkins, or Newcastle just offered a better deal. So we'll see that really quickly. I think we'll see that today. I think we'll see that tomorrow. That Šeško will pick quite quickly because Newcastle need to move, so they're going to be forcing that deal. So we'll see quickly. If Leipzig enter talks with the Toon, then Newcastle have got the player, and we've either pivoted or bulked at the price. So I think we're going to see that rather quickly. Bobby, he's wasting away at City. I agree. Afarin says United believe a deal for Watkins could be 40 to 45. Šeško will likely be around 69 to 70. Yeah, that was one of the first things we spoke about this morning. I agree with that completely. That's what I reported first thing this morning. Whitwell is an interesting one because the other day, before yesterday, according to him, we weren't even in for him, and we're probably not going to sign a striker. And lo and he's now come out and saying so. We kind of did say that yesterday, so it's not a surprise for us on here. We've been saying this now for a little while, and Whitwell to me is a little bit slow on the uptake and a little bit slow on the game. We've been saying this for about a week now. I can see the same season as last season, a bumming goal, a bum up. Things have to change. Potentially, Mark. Who knows? I don't think so. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think so on the basis that we've got. I don't think so, and I should tell you the reason why, okay? Amarin, I'm being positive on him right now because I want to go into the season with renewed optimism and hope, and that's the best that we can do, is that I want to go in and believe in, we've got this guy in, he's had his pre-season, and I think he's a good coach, and I want to see the coaching. I think with Mbeumo and Cunha, the added to Ahmad and some of the other players may be looking better this season. Ugarte, Onana terrifies the hell of me, and Højlund does as well. But I think just with those two players, the goals and assists, and with Amarin's, and I am being optimistic on this. Amarin's improvement, the players being more accustomed to the system, I think will be better next season. How much better, I don't know. I think 10th. I think with this current squad, I'd like to think more, and maybe people will be right and have this opinion that maybe Amarin is this amazing coach, but it's so difficult to be positive on things we haven't seen yet. But I do think we'll be better. I don't think we'll be as bad as last season. But it's a shot in the dark. It's optimism. It's not because we've gone out and bought players and because we're trying to muscle in on the top four. It's hope. It's optimism. Some of it is, okay, well, we've got two of the league's best players. and we've got to hope that they have the same season. So everything is conjecture, everything is hope, everything right now is until we sign a Sesko or a Watkins, unless we sign a goalkeeper, Onana's going to cost us points. I can just see the Arsenal game, Onana balls us up a shot and we lose 1-0, or he has a stinker of a game and we lose 4-0. It's not going to surprise us, is it? So I think we're going to have a better season, but are we going to have a good enough season? My question is that we're trying to win the league in 2028. Are we going to have a better season, but is it going to be good enough? I think 10th is not good enough for me, but are we going to be good enough? Is the season going to be good enough? Even if we finish 8th, is that good enough for a club like ours? Adeyemi, Šeško and Watkins deal is still based on players. If we don't sell, we can't buy. Right at this point, I don't think it is. Unless Anthony, I do think he's going to go to Saudi. So I think that deal's on. The fact that we've been forced to go in for Šeško means that we will need to sell to buy, but I don't think we are reliant on that. I think Rashford going, saving those wages, even though we're not going to see it till next season, I still think that helps. Anthony will go. So I think maybe we are speculating for the first time. We're saying to ourselves, look, we need to move these players on. We back ourselves to move on. So Šeško, I don't think is reliant on sales right now, because otherwise we wouldn't go for him. Or we know that Anthony is on his way. So I think that we're not going to need to sell, or we're not going to put out there that we need to sell to buy to go and get Šeško, because we can't let that deal rumble on, because Newcastle are there and they will keep on at the player. So if we take a long time, maybe we do take a week or two because we're trying to sell players, but ultimately we're going to be forced into trying to do that deal really quickly. We'll win the league in 21-28 if we're lucky, mate. So Temishkin's in the chat, legend of the chat. I look forward to his every day. Šeško, Carlos B, Emi Martinez, transfer window is better for next season. I don't disagree, mate. As always, some good signings in there. Martinez, the goalkeeper, I just don't know what we're going to do. I think that will become clearer if we get Šeško. If we have a massive outlay for Šeško, then we know what we're going to do there. Adeyemi, if we don't get in more players, the window closes. Ineos shouldn't blame Ruben. I agree. If we do not make the top 6 next season, we're not. Even if we get Šeško in, top 6 is going to be difficult. Anyway, we need a goalkeeper. If we get a goalkeeper, then we are reliant on Newcastle, Brighton, Aston Villa and co not having a great season, and then maybe we can push top 6. If we went from 16th to 6th, 10 places up a league in a season, then that's fantastic. Like, I can't argue with that. But I just don't think that's on right now, even with a Šeško. I think with an Ollie Watkins it is. I think we should be pushing then 6th. But right now I think I wouldn't blame Amarin necessarily. If he doesn't get more players in, I think he should get the season. But then at the end of the season, do we offer him a new deal? So really, right now, it's so hard to predict because of the players that we haven't got in. We've only signed 2 players. So right now, I'm kind of leaning more towards Mark. Not 16th, 15th. I think we're worth 10th. But you just don't know. And that's where we are. We just we just don't know. So I am going to end the show there, guys, because I need to go and jump in the car and travel for 4 hours. Yeah, I need to go and have a little pack. And so I probably won't do a show. If anything does break, I might break it in the car potentially. But if not, if nothing really happens, I probably may not do another show today. I might do it, but it will be on the old phone. But it's not the best. But if anything does break more, then I will try to jump on and we can talk through it again. But as it stands, Sesko is number one. The price has been set 69 million. As per yesterday, nothing's really changed. He is our top target according to Fabrizio, and it looks like we're going to try and get this deal done. So keep watching. I think he's going to develop really quickly. Newcastle are pushing it as well, so we'll see. So Garnacho, Chelsea, they're looking to do that deal. So let's see what develops there. And then Anthony, I'm expecting Saudi to come in and make an official approach and him to be gone really quickly. Obviously, Sancho's still there or thereabouts as well. So we'll see. We'll see what goes on there. So thank you to the chat. Obviously, legends in the chat as always. Thank you for the comments. It's really important that we get as many opinions in as we can. Obviously, I'm going to caveat that with obviously opinions for the club. I don't mind pivoting slightly to transfers in that are maybe alluding to deals with the club, but other than that, I'm not here as a mouthpiece for other clubs. But legends of the chat, again, I feel very fortunate to be in this chat, and things that we've said over the last couple of weeks are coming true. So, amazing chat. Thank you as always. It means a lot. It really, really does mean a lot, and I love being here. So thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll see you shortly. Have a good rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever you're doing. And of course, I'll see you on the next one. Take care, all. And cheers, buddy. And I expect a max of 2 more signings. Not agreed with you. It's not good enough. I demand at least another 3 or 4. But we'll see. I'll see you guys later. And keep safe and have a good one. See you very shortly.